Welcome to another broadcast of The Competitive Edge. On The Competitive Edge today, we're going to be looking at a pretty interesting topic, and that is the face of money. Now, just before I get into today's program, permit me to welcome my panelists. I have Frank, who is an economist. I have Nielsen at the top. He is from Jamaica and the Jamaican stock market. He plays a tremendous role there. We have Paul, and Paul is a financial specialist. We have Peter. Peter is the guy that will teach you and talk to you about having a master plan. We have Shivani. Shivani from UWI. Also, she is a project management practitioner. So we have a number of dynamic personality on the platform today. I also want to welcome the audience that is viewing this program from across the world. I want to encourage you to call a friend, tell a friend that the competitive edge is on. And today we are looking at very interesting topic, which is the face habits and the face of money. All right. Now, just before we get into today's program, I want to indicate the sponsors for today's program. Today's program comes to you with the kind compliments of the bestseller portal. To learn more about the bestseller portal, I encourage you to go to the bestsellerportal.org. On the bestseller portal, you will get books that deals with stock market, financial intelligence, marketing, project management. You have all of these books that you're likely to get by just going to that portal. The beauty about it, you're going to get audiobooks, so you can listen to the books at work, um, as you do your exercise, and you can listen to the books. Along with this, you have greetings card for all occasion. And of course, we continue to publish new greetings cards to that platform. So whether you want a card for your spouse or a birthday card or a card for a friend, you can go to that website, which is bestsellerportal.org, and get those cards. Now, having said that, I want to welcome you back to today's program, Habits and the Face of Money. I want to begin by saying this, money is relevant to every area of life. But what we have seen is that most people struggle with money. They struggle for many reasons. They struggle because they do not have a clear understanding as to what money is. They struggle because they do not have a clear idea how to access capital, which is just happening a lot with rising stars in business. You have a great vision, but then you struggle to raise the much needed capital depending on where you are in the world. And even when you access capital, we see that very often you struggle to leverage capital in a way that really makes sense. So people struggle for all of these reasons. The last reason that I have observed why people struggle with money, they also struggle with money because they do not fully understand how to mitigate money itself. In today's program, I would love for us to cover things like definition of money, examples of money, differences of money, and I will have a call to action at the end of the day, meaning that we just don't want to come here and say to you that you don't fully understand money. At the end of this program, there is a surprise. And the surprise is that you're going to have sponsors that are going to work with you to ensure that you're financially literate and you're better positioned to raise your capital for business, raise your capital for life, and position yourself to build wealth. So we'll go into all of that before the end of the program. But without further delay, um, I just quickly want to make one more point, and then I'm going to open up for the panelists to chime into this. When I think of money, I first of all see money as a tool, and that's important for us to really see money as a tool. The second thing that I wanted to look at is examples of money. Debt is a form of money. Credit is a form of money. Equity is a form of money. Hard money lending is a form of money because you use all of these different platforms to access money. So I just wanted to put that to it. But do you really understand the differences between debt and equity, equity and credit, credit and hard money and creative financing? So perhaps these are some of the things that we will cover today with time. But I first of all want to come to now uh, Paul and really ask him to walk us through some of the financial instruments that is available, and then I'll come to Nielsen and I'll ask Nielsen, since he's the newest person on the panel, to introduce himself, what he does, tell us a little bit about Jamaica, what's happening, and then we'll go around. So, Paul, talk to us a little bit about financial tools and instruments that we are currently have available.
Yes, sir. Definitely, Gary. There's so many of them, and I don't want to take up all the time, and I'm going to try to talk quickly because I normally talk slowly. So let's talk about equipment financing. You could pay cash, you could bank finance it, which is debt. But the best way to obtain equipment for your business is equipment leasing, which is also debt, of course. Equipment leasing is the method that the largest companies in the world use to obtain ownership of equipment. Tax advantages, they have reasons,
Mhm.
lots of good reasons. So there is, and that's what we can offer for you. If you need equipment for your business, instead of go working with the finance guy at the dealership, because don't think that they're your friend, they're making money on you. They mark up the cost of money. That's called yield spread premium. They make profit off of that. That's what we do not do for you. That's just one of the reasons why you should work with us instead of, the captive financing company at the dealership. Sale lease back, another form of a lease. If you need working capital and you have assets that you own free and clear, equipment for your business, you can draw money from those. You sell it to the leasing company, you keep it, use it, make money, repay the debt, take title back to it. Just like a asset based loan, but it's under the form of equipment leasing. Okay, we've got commercial and investment property real estate financing, factoring, which helps you with your cash flow. Sell your accounts receivable for 98 cents on the dollar. Get the cash right now. Don't wait 30, 45, or 60 days for your client to pay when you don't have to, because that puts a burden on your cash flow. And lack of cash flow will kill your business. Okay, interesting. I know this is money, but this is kind of a concept. I don't know. We can go into this another time, Gary. But purchase order finance. Well, it definitely is. Purchase order financing. You're a manufacturer. You have a large order. Walmart ordered 1 million pairs of shoes from you. Biggest order of your life. But you can't fill the order because you don't have the cash. Purchase order financing steps in, advances all the money to manufacturer, and ship that to Walmart. Once it gets to Walmart, boom, factoring it takes into effect. PO financing company gets paid off. You get 80% of the invoice because factoring is involved. The other 20% will come to you when Walmart pays the invoice. Those are the things that we can offer your business. And capital raising, cannot forget that. Anytime you hear capital raising, though, make sure that the person you're considering hiring to do that job for you follows up with the capital raise is Securities and Exchange Commission compliant. You cannot take money from your sister's brothers or sister's cousins, best friends, uncles, girlfriend, boyfriend. Can't do it. There's a legal method that has to be in place. And if you do it the wrong way, there's problems that could result, and you don't want those problems because they're large. Okay, that's what we can offer you at Patriot Business Finance Consultants and the Competitive Edge and the High Net Worth Investors Guide. We all work together to make sure that you get the lowest cost of money, best terms, the best overall deal structure. That's what we do as consultants for you.
All right, thanks for that share,
Mm-hmm.
Paul. And I really trust that the audience would have listened very keenly to what Paul would have said. So, in the event that you're in the US and you're struggling to access capital, which is what we're talking about today, you're struggling to leverage capital and mitigate that, this is a platform for you. Definitely, you can reach out to us, and we'll be so happy to engage with you to ensure that you get the solution and so much more for your business. Um, I also want to add that today we have a new talent to our community. And this is, he has been in the pipeline for some time, but he's now decided it's a time to surface. His name is Nielsen, and Nielsen is from Jamaica, and he has a rich history uh, with the Jamaican stock market. So, Nielsen, without any further delay, I want to give you a chance to introduce yourself to our audience, and you can shine into the conversation in terms of your interpretation of the face of money. All to you, Nielsen.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning again, panelists, and good morning to the audience. Well, I am Nielsen Rose. Over 20 years experience in stock market trading and portfolio management back in Jamaica. Essentially, the Jamaica Stock Exchange really has a new business channel, and so what we're really trying to do is to try to get persons a little more financially informed, financially literate, so that they can actually make better business and financial decisions. And I think that's quite appropriate given the topic this morning. One of the things that we find, one of the discussions we have, in Jamaica, a lot of us were taught, you go to school, you pass some exams, and you go and get a good job, and that will take care of you for the rest of your life. But when
Not
you look
anymore.
exactly, when you look at the successful people, they're telling you that you need to have many streams of income. And so when you look at in terms of creating wealth, we find that things like the stock market is certainly one of the areas that, as an asset class, is one of the areas that over the long term will outperform many others. And we also talk about real estate, etc. Those over the long term give you really excellent returns and really help you to create additional wealth. Or if you didn't have wealth before, it gives you an avenue to create that kind of wealth. And even here in the USA, when you look at, for example, the NASDAQ would have made over 40% returns last year. In 2023, I think the Dow Jones would have been somewhere in the teens, and the S&P would have been maybe over 20 odd percent. And this is especially important in an instance where throughout the year we had challenges with inflation and high interest rates. We saw governments pulling money out of the system by increasing interest rates and so on. So it's important to understand the relationship between your income and what you do with it at a particular point in time, and being able therefore to create additional income or to begin to create additional wealth for yourself and your family. We talk about generational wealth. So it's very important that we understand money in and of itself and what it does, what it can do for you, and more importantly is how you utilize it. It is also important to look at what point do you go more for spending consumption now versus looking at investing or savings. And many people use the two terms savings and investment interchangeably, but essentially in many cases, savings is more for your short term needs down the road, while investing will cover more of your long term needs. And it's actually putting away money for a future use. And so it's very important that we understand these things in the concept of money, what it is, and how we utilize it to help us to advance our own objectives further down the road. I want to also add, especially in the context of the stock market, because many persons will see it as, yes, investing, and how can I invest to make additional income. But we must not lose sight of the fact that it serves another purpose for companies and businesses who have a need to raise capital, as Paul would have spoken to, the different types of different ways of attracting or raising capital. The stock market is also one area that allows you to bring additional capital to your business. So it actually brings together, it acts as a real marketplace. The people who have money, and those who are looking for a place, a home, and those who have a need for money. And so the stock market can help you to, as a business, to get additional capital to expand and grow your business without the additional burden of high interest payments at a particular point in time. So yes, it's critically important that we begin to understand these things, and look more at ourselves, our own situations, or the positions of our businesses, and see how we can leverage what is out there to help us to grow with our incomes or grow our businesses.
Wow, that was a lot. And thanks for that share, Nielsen Rose. Now, what I want to do, I want to table a question, and I want the panelists to at least take a minute or two to respond to that question. So I want to think about the question as I do some preambles around what Nielsen would have said. The question I want to throw out today is, why do people leverage money as a liability instead of an asset? And let me just give some context here. Um, Building wealth is not necessarily about how much money you earn, because we have seen middle class and upper class earn a lot of money, but then they spend a lot of money. So there's not much that is saved, and there's not much that is invested into the S&P 500, into the ETF, into Vanguard index, into none of these things. So as quick as you earn, you deplete. So the big question is, why do people leverage money as a liability instead of an asset? So do think about that. And I'm going to come back to the panelists. I am going to start with Frank, then I'm going to come across to Shivani. So you have a minute or two to respond to that question. But I just want to chime in a little bit to what Nielsen would have said. Um, the Jamaican market, I think, stock market has done really good for itself, because you have both an active stock market and you have a junior stock exchange market. And I do believe that as we look at international financial markets, it is something that we all need to spend some time to understand in the context of wealth creation. It's important to recognize that the majority of the people in the world cannot save their way to wealth. The alternative is that you have to invest your way to wealth. And to do so, and to do the right way, you need to understand the right investment platforms. And over time, we will do that deep dive into what some of these platforms represent, so as to ensure that you have the competitive edge, and to ensure that you're able to win uh, in business and in life. All right. So, having said that, thanks for that share again, Nielsen. That was very insightful. I want to now open up and give you guys a minute or two to respond to the question. And the question again is, why do people leverage money as a liability instead of an asset? Does that have anything to do with how we are educated, how we are schooled? Frank, what are your thoughts?
One of the common reasons that I have found is the desire for immediate gratification. What happens when you have immediate gratification leads to the purchase of items that depreciate in value rather than investing in assets that can grow and generate income over time. Um, Nielsen rightly said streams of income. A lot of persons don't really sit down and think about streams of income. We think, and that's general, we think that, okay, this is what I want and I go for it. Um, for example, in Guyana, we have courts financing. And a lot of people go and get the money from courts and are saddled with a high interest rate debt. Because think about the courts don't ask for all the other things that the other like banks and so would ask for. They just give you the money, literally give you money. And so the thing about it is that people live in the now. I want it now. I see this and I want it. And if they can basically look at more long-term goals financially, especially the middle class and lower class, and look at more financial long-term goals, I think they will be able to see how they can better leverage money as an asset instead of a liability. I always remember when I bought my car, um, I didn't want a car just to be paying car loans. That car had to pay for itself. So when you purchase that vehicle, whatever you purchase, it must be an asset and not a liability to you. That's my
All
view.
right. So I take your points that people are looking for instant gratification. And I see it also in the context that when you don't have the money, you want the money. And when you get the money, you struggle to pay back that debt. In the case of course that you're talking about, I think it's a common phenomenon because I do interface with a few persons that are dealing with the entity you have just mentioned. And of course, they only reach to you when they're at that crunch point and they don't know what to do. But there's so much that has to be talked as to, how you should buy that and things that you should look at before you buy it. I'm not going to get into that today. But let me come to Shivani. Um, Shivani, in your experience and in interfacing with businesses and the average individual, uh, what do you think are preventing them in terms of leveraging capital has a asset instead of a liability?
So, Carrie, such great conversations coming out of this, right? And it really can help us in projects and everything in life because life is a series of projects. One thing that stands out to me, and you said it too, is education. Education and your training. How are we taught originally? How are we taught originally? We are taught to go to school, get your degree, do your, some of us will say do your master's, and then you get a job and you stay in that until you retire. Of course, the market is changing, right? Of course, the market is changing. And Nielsen was speaking about it as well in terms of having multiple streams of income. Just yesterday, I had a conversation with one of my colleagues. Well, she's going to retire, and it is because of her training that she will have to do something again because her income will not be enough in order to continue with her retirement. So it's training, and how are we trained in order to get the money at the end? You have to retire, and that's what people work for. But as we know, the reality is a lot of times our retirement packages may not be enough. It may not be enough with the type of lifestyle that we have grown accustomed to. Um, what not Peter, Frank was saying actually, Frank was talking about his vehicle, and and he wanted to look at his vehicle as being an asset. Now, I listened to that because I would have never do something like that, right? My vehicle, when I buy my nice vehicle, I'm not going to put
It's
it
for
out there
you.
for somebody else to use. That's my vehicle. So, but this entire thing now is changing because even, okay, so you buy a nice vehicle, right? Nice is for everybody. Everybody want know what is nice to them and value to them. Now, people are getting very smart, right? What I'm seeing happening in Trinidad, and maybe happening throughout the country, throughout the Caribbean as well, in terms of putting it out for executive rentals. So you buy a fancy car, whether it's your Benz, whether it's your Audi, whether it's your BMW, and you have executive rentals now. So people approach me asking me for my vehicle to put it out as part of the executive rentals. Of course, are still educated in the way that that is mine, right? Right, Frank?
Yep.
So I have to become a
Yep.
little more like you, right? Executive rentals. So it's how the whole conversation really is how are we trained? How are we trained? So we have to get a new type of training. And as I always say, learn, unlearn, and relearn. Learn, unlearn, and relearn. I sit down here this morning, I learning a lot about the stock exchange. I want to get involved in this. I want to get involved with the BFCs. There's so much that I want to do and that I want to share with people who don't know about it. Because plenty people don't know. You don't know what you do know, right? It's who you interface with, and that's how you're going to gain knowledge. So it starts with education and it starts with training. People train people in what they know, right? Remember, that is a system of education and curriculum design. We train and we teach people in what we know. Trust is also something, especially if you want to leverage and leverage money. You have to speak about trust. Another point that I have seen always, and it is building on what um, not Frank. Yeah, Frank was saying actually. We have to understand what we want, multiple streams of income, yes. But when we get the money, you get a loan, you go to the bank, the traditional banks, and you get a loan. They may give you a loan because you could pay back, as we see. You go and you spend out all the money, and you didn't invest. Again, education is like that, especially with the working class, right? And this is a
Yeah.
conversation. We don't have the working class moving to the top class, as we say, because they can't move the middle class. They will stay at that aspect. So there is a pivot. And just yesterday again, I was having this conversation. How do you pivot from this sector into the other sector? Probably this is a conversation to help us, right?
Yeah.
And my last point in this is saying, how could we do this? Is through project management. Now, project management will teach us traditional ways of managing projects, but also the agile way of managing projects, as I keep speaking about, that I believe will help us. When you understand the outcomes of something, do you know really what do you want? And you said it short term, and Peter will chime in on that, I'm sure, short term, long term, and the master plan. When you know what you want now, you can look at this in sprints and in iteration. So you borrow money, right? You get your money to do what you want, and you it must be seen as an outcome. What is the end goal of that? You take that now and you invest into another 2 week sprints, I call it, or iterations. So you are not only looking at just having this money now and down the road I'll see what happens. No, you are breaking it up into sprints or iterations for planning and for execution. So you could actually see something happening faster. And you still take what is remaining from that and you build again. So it's not when you get all the money that you just spend it out. So project management and the agile way helps you. It builds a structure that you could have more and you could achieve more. That's just my 5 cents, not 2 cents. 5 cents is more.
All right. Thanks for that insightful share. As usual, Shivani, I certainly did enjoy it. I want to just come back to the point that Frank would have made, because I want to also do a disclaimer. This is not investment advice. When you come into us and we're working with you at an individual level, we will that will then be considered investment advice. And let me say what the average person might say, hey, Frank went and buy a car and he make the car an income producing asset. But they buy the car, they put the car out there, the car crash. The car crashed because
Yeah.
you didn't have the right advice to say to you, take out comprehensive insurance. Because when you take out the comprehensive insurance, it's going to cover, the car in the event that something happens. So that's investment advice. When we identify your particular situation, we're going to then advise you on, how to navigate it, because there are a lot of nuts and bolts that has to be checked before you go down along this path. Again, I want to make another statement. We are not also saying to you don't live a quality lifestyle. All right. We're not saying to you don't go buy that luxury car, but there's a right and wrong way to do it. All right. In Shivani case, I want my luxury car and I insure my luxury car. But guess what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna buy perhaps three other cars, and the three other cars is going to do exactly what Frank did. And guess what? It can pay for itself. It can pay for my luxury car. It can pay me too. So I don't have to go to my primary source of income at all. All right. So they're right and wrong. We're going to get into all of that, as we start to give investment advice. When you come into us, we're going to give you so much more on these particular points. But let me come now to Peter. Peter, what are your thoughts? What do you think are the biggest challenges for people really learning, applying, and mastering how to leverage capital as an asset as against what they commonly do, leverage it as a liability. We see this a lot in terms of, credit. In America today, we have millions and upon millions of persons that are in credit debt. They are struggling with this. I would love to have your take on this, my friend.
All right. And I just want to welcome our listening audience to our program today. But the take I'm going to do on this, Gary, I'm going to go extremely wide because a lot of times, as you mentioned about us not giving investment advice, and people tend to act on misinformation. And what I do understand is a lot of times individuals doesn't understand how life works, and that life is a system of laws. And we're not talking about rules here, we're talking about laws. A rule is like they said you in a traffic light. That's a rule really that is designed to protect or human interaction within a given space. But laws are like gravity. Gravity is a law. You can't break laws and still exist. Laws break you. You can't break laws. And economics is a law. There are laws that governs economics. So what we do find is that individuals do not understand economic laws. And because they do not understand economics laws and economic laws, how do we navigate through life economically? It requires a system of exchange that is called money. And when individuals are misinformed on what money is, then a lot of disaster keep happening, and people wonder how I'm trying so hard to leverage. I'm doing my best, but there is it's like a what we would call the iceberg. There's a little piece that you see at the top, but beneath the surface, there's this massive element that is not seen. So people doesn't understand laws as it governs the money, and so they keep trying their best, but they make the same mistakes over and over.
All right. That's a great share. And I want to come to Paul now, but just before I come to Paul, I want to tie what you're saying back a little bit to what Paul would have said early on. You see, there are many faces to money. And one of the things that I want to add is that I think that people need to pause a bit and really take some time to understand what we call the income audit analytics. We talked about that in previous broadcasts. I would not go into that. But to link what you have just said, Peter, to what Paul would talk about is something that I call group economics. You can raise money the right way. You can raise capital the right way through group economics. All right, because what we see sometimes, you, the individual alone, on a single paycheck, you may be able to save, but the time that you're going to save, you're going to take to accumulate wealth, to accumulate enough money to put it into a smart investment portfolio is going to take some time. So I want to just add group economics is where 10 persons are able to come together. They're able to put together X amount. They're able to accumulate X amount, and they're able to leverage X amount in a smart way to position themselves and to build wealth. So that's just something that I want to share in that regard. But let me come to you, Paul. Um, what is your take? Just before you answer, all of what I'm saying is a new form of education that needs to be introduced. As Shivani would have said, we need to detox, and detox and detox and rebuild, not her exact words, but based on how we were schooled as a people when it comes to wealth. um, the traditional approach of getting your master's degree and simply just earning is not enough. You need to understand how to put money to work in terms of creating wealth in a sustainable way. Massive inflation is taking place, and these are important talking points. But Paul, I would love to hear from you, and then I'm going to come back to Nielsen and to chime in. Paul.
Okay, well, I'm going to take everything that Frank, Nielsen, Shivani, and Peter said, and you said, and I mean that all that formed what I'm about to say right now. Debt, okay, is debt always a liability? No, it's not. You would think that it is, seems like it is, but it's not. If you have a designed and intentional plan so that it's not a liability, well, then you are creating assets. Debt does create assets. If as Frank said, he bought a car, he's making above and beyond his monthly car payment in cash flow by renting it out. So he's got an asset because he had a plan. If you own a construction company, you get a new bulldozer and you take on debt in order to get that, well, you're making 150, $250 an hour with it. You're creating assets for yourself. And debt is the quickest way to create assets unless you have a pile of cash. And even if you do have a pile of cash sitting there, don't spend it. Keep it for opportunities and emergencies. Use debt to create wealth and assets. Um, Consumer debt is most often always, and not 100% of the time, but I'm going to say 99.5% of the time, consumer debt always involves depreciating. I'm not going to say depreciating assets because it's not an asset if it depreciates. Depreciating things, cars, you name it, electronic, consumer
The,
goods,
the
everything.
economists are going to choke you for that, Paul. But
Yeah,
go
I
on.
can't help it. I'm glad I'm far away from them. I'm glad we're miles and miles away. All right. There's two of them
Okay.
for me. Okay. But
Yeah.
so what are just quick examples? I don't know. Consumer debt that doesn't turn into a depreciating thing. A gun, a pistol, or a rifle that you bought in 1989 for $200 is now selling 500, 600, 800, $900. I know that because I
Appreciate
like
it.
those. Yeah, and that
Mhm.
wasn't even by design. The person who bought that firearm bought it for a purpose. They didn't buy it because it was going to appreciate. They didn't think it was going to appreciate, but it did. Okay.
Nielsen, Nielsen, not cutting you, Paul, but Nielsen, that becomes a good investment asset to have, man.
Indeed, indeed.
Yeah.
Very much so.
And then
Yeah, yeah, Paul, go on.
you guys, I love muscle cars, 68 through 72. I love those things. I have a 70 Cutlass, right? But one of my I can name all the ones that appreciated, but I'm just going to use one example. 1970 Oldsmobile 442 W30. Okay. That was the factory race car on the street. That was a $7,000 car, which was a whole lot of money in 1970 because regular cars you could pick them up for $2,000. Okay, today that car will go across an auction block at a high priced auto auction, 250 at $325,000. But the person who bought that car didn't buy it for that purpose. They didn't know, and they just didn't know. I'm sure there's a few other examples of consumer goods that have appreciated, but let's tell another story. I sold cars, you guys, in the past. That was a job I had for 14 years. One gentleman, 2014, the Corvette changed, brand new body style. He comes in, buys it. It was just changed. There was no discounts when he bought it. 6 months down the road, you could buy those cars at a discount. But for 6 months, anybody who bought a Corvette was full price, full sticker. So he bought the $69,000 mid-level model, taxed it out, taxed it, title, everything. I think it was close to 75. He walked out the door with it. 6 months later, he calls me and he says, I want to trade it in and get a manual transmission. I said, why? He said, because my wife doesn't drive it like I thought she would. I bought an automatic because I thought she would enjoy it. She doesn't drive it, so I'm going to get what I want. Well, he spent almost $75,000. What's trade-in value for that? He had 1,200 miles on it. And trade-in was $50,000. He lost $25,000 evaporated. That's that's $200 a mile. 1,200 miles. That's $200 a mile that he paid, plus insurance. That's there was no financial gain there at all. And he was wealthy. He didn't care. He wanted what he wanted. There's such a wide range to talk about. There's so much to talk about, but I'll wrap my statement up by saying that, man, debt can make you rich. Just do it smart. It really can. I think debt is the only thing that will make you wealthy. You can't save your way to wealth. That's impossible. There's no way to do that. You can save your way to comfort, maybe, but that's pretty uncertain right there. That's a big maybe.
Yeah.
But smart investing, smart use of debt will take you everywhere you want to go with the proper advice and the proper. You got to get educated on how to do it.
Yep. So we need to watch consumer debt, or at least, in the what the wise one would say, if you want to have those luxury items, just make sure that you got about 5 or 10 positive income producing assets that is working behind the scene for you, so you could live that quality lifestyle and not necessarily worried about it. And you're right, Paul. The wealthiest people in the world, they they live in debt. They swim in debt because they understand something that most people don't understand. But in the wider world, we have been taught, and in the Caribbean, you're being taught a lot. Stay away from debt. Debt is bad. That is the pathway to build wealth when you know what you're doing. But I want to come across to Nielsen, and I know that he may add the Jamaican Stock Exchange market flavor to all of this. But in your view, why do people are so accustomed? Why is it easier for them to buy a debt and leverage that into liabilities as against into asset? What is your take from a Jamaican standpoint, stock market standpoint, a global thinker standpoint? I would love to hear you.
It's interesting, and I gonna follow up on what Paul said, but before it starts with what
Shivani.
Giovanni had said. It's how we were taught, um, and certainly in the Caribbean and in Jamaica, we're taught that debt is bad. You see a lot of small business people, and they need capital, they need money, but they're actually ashamed to let people know that they have to go and borrow in order to finance their business.
Yeah.
And I find it so amazing because the biggest, as you rightly said, the biggest of persons, billionaires, They are floating bonds every day. Governments, the United States, for example, is one of the most indebted countries. But,
Yeah, that
but
is true.
it is the world's reserve currency. This is where everybody takes flight to safety. And so if it comes back to how we were taught. But again, it is really, if we look at it, it is how we utilize um, the debt, how we utilize the liabilities, and again, what it is that we're trying to achieve, what our objectives, and especially for somebody who wasn't born in wealth, it's highly unlikely that you're gonna have all the capital that you need to whether invest or grow yourself to that level that you want. And so you're going to have to dabble a little bit or a lot into some amount of debt. You're going to have to take on some of that. But it must be, I think Frank had said it, it must be that when you take on that debt, it is increasing your ability to earn. And that's critically important. Again, even as we look at businesses and business people, you might look at your balance sheet, you might say, at this point in time, how is my balance sheet looking? How's my capital structure? And given everything, and again, back to the Caribbean and Jamaican context, you might not be as formal with all the things in place to go to the stock market to raise the capital. And so, what do? You go to the bank, you go to Paul with the private equity, and you get some funding, which is debt, with an intention to grow the business and 3, 4, 5 years down the road, you go to the stock market and and you raise that capital and you
Yeah,
pay out that debt, giving the business a lot more free capital to operate and grow and expand. So it's important that even when we talk about personal debt, Peter, you talk about your credit cards and so on. What are the recurring expenses that you will have to take on? You're going to work every day, so you're going to buy gas. You're going to have to pay that light bill every day, or the water bill. Those are recurring expenses that you must take on, and therefore you could use the credit to pay those, and it then frees up some other income, so you now have additional income to do the investment while you use credit to pay down your recurring expenses. And therefore, when you invest that additional free space, it gives you additional earnings. So it's about understanding that, um, knowing what you want, and choosing the right form that suits you. Again, Paul spoke to coming to him because the cost of what he will give you. And people have to understand that money has a cost in and of itself, through interest or whatever other charges. And so you'll have to look at, even as you may take on some debt, what is the cost of this debt? Do I go to the loan shark because that's the only place I can go, where they give me, this insurmountable charge? Or do I, is there low cost private equity? Do I give up some of the business as a return for that additional investment? So maybe I would instead of owning 100% of a $1 million company, I now own 50% of a $10 million company. So it's how we utilize it and how we manage it that is important.
all right, thanks for that share, Nielsen.
Here,
Today we
here,
look.
just a minute. I just wanted to find out from Paul, what is the principle, or the how does the Jamaican Stock Exchange, or can you utilize what you have learned from the Jamaican Stock Exchange to bring knowledge to individuals here in the United States who wants to understand more about the stock exchange in here in the US?
Absolutely. And so again, what's important, and is that you're not giving investment advice per se, or you're not soliciting certain type of business, but you're providing information. And then, generally speaking, because when you come down to it, there are licenses that you might need if you get into specifics. But what you want to be doing is providing information so that people are more financially literate. But yes, we can.
And the
All
reason
right.
I said, just want to get wait, the reason why I asked it because I don't want to limit you to Jamaica because there's a lot here, and this program is a lot catered to the American audience. So I don't want somebody listening and says, "Oh, he's a Jamaican. Having a Jamaican perspective," so they tune it out. While there is a value amount, a rich value of education, not investment advice, but education that can be received that make us more, give us more understanding of how here in the United States we can, understand what is happening in where stock is concerned. I just want to clarify that.
All right. All right. Thanks for that share, Peter. And I must say that Jamaica is a giant in the Caribbean context in terms of stock market. You're one of the shining examples of what a stock market can be for the wider Caribbean. And we'll definitely look deeper into that as time progresses, Nielsen. Um, you have made a couple of points, and what I want to add today, we look at the face of money. But of course, when we're looking at money, I always emphasize there's four things that we should understand about capital. Not only capital portfolio, but how to access, how to leverage, and how to mitigate. Next week, I want us to dig a little deeper into how to access. And one of the points that you made, Nielsen, should I access debt or should I build up the portfolio of my company and I go to the stock market where I'm now able to raise equity? And when raising equity, there's different advantages between equity capital and debt capital. Debt capital, you are saddled with what we call monthly debt obligation. Equity is quite different. You may be paying annual dividends as against monthly debt obligation. So next week, I want us to do a deep dive into access strategies and perhaps some of the benefits so as to help the wider community to understand more about money. Money, money, money. So, in the interest of time, because I got to run shortly, I am going to ask everyone to start preparing to give their closing remarks. Um, and as promised, I said to the public, you stay with us to the end, and I will be sharing some goodies with you. So I'm going to start with with Peter, your closing remarks. Then I'm going to come across to Frank, Shivani. I'm going to leave. Peter, let me start with you. Closing remarks.
Yeah, just quickly, the way how I started is the way that we want to end because we advise individuals to plan and to have a master plan as it relates to economic laws and how people navigate. There is a cost. There's a difference between the cost of life and the cost of living. That's a deep dive that we can do. That we advise or we when we're working with the people that we have around us is that they need to understand the cost of life, and when you understand the cost of life, then now you can now navigate in, and the cost of life is really understanding laws, because life in general is obedience to laws and understand what those laws are. The living now is the application of those. So it makes it easier for us to live when we understand how the laws that governs life operates.
All right, thanks for that share, Peter, Frank.
I um before the saying that money makes the world go round, it's not only individually but corporate, internationally, governments. Money is very important. However, one of the things from a leadership standpoint, um, if we are able to manage our finances, it becomes even more crucial for a person who works from home, who is self-employed. But there are a few things that one has got to do, and always remember to. Budgeting is one. And because of time, I will not go into it, but I'm just going to call it budgeting. Set realistic goals, realistic goals. The old saying of saving is still applicable, and do long-term planning. And follow those 3 steps, and we'll go a long way for you.
All right, thanks for that share, Frank. There's a lot of wisdom in what you have just shared. I want to come to the lady of the moment, Shivani. Um, all to you, Shivani. I would love to hear your closing remarks and recommended, best practices that people can adopt.
Thanks, Gary, and thanks for that wonderful introduction there to get me started. Right? I'm not going to say that when you say the lady, so it's only me here as the only lady, but we'll have another conversation on that, right?
You're the lady. You're the lady of the moment, though.
Yeah. So we're discussing here in terms of the faces of money and everything that was said. We all have to probably look at things differently in order to create wealth because I'll stick to the original point. How were we educated? What were people expected to learn? And you're saying, okay, you do incremental wealth, you do a little piece by piece, and eventually at retirement age you should have something. However, I don't think that will ever be enough, right? That is just my take on it. That's how I am personally. Different people will be different. Now, how could we really develop this concept where you want to create wealth and you want to have multiple streams of income? Of course, it's to learn from different persons. It's to learn from people here. As I said at the beginning of the convo, I started to learn so much already. One term or a couple lines then, we need to become more innovative as a people in order to change, in order to be more creative. So project management will teach us how to become more innovative. There's innovative techniques in project management that will allow us to be able to access capital, to be able to grow your personal wealth and your portfolio if it is your business. So that's my closing remarks, really. We need to become more innovative. Innovation in projects will really help us here. Learning new practices, right? Because it's new practices we are preaching in order to understand how do you want to probably move from just middle class to acquire more wealth, or how you don't want to be dependent on other persons when you do retire. So innovation, it's something to think about all the time, innovation and how to become more innovative. Learn, unlearn, and relearn. Learn, unlearn, and relearn. Cheers.
Good, I got it there. Learn, unlearn, and relearn. And I'm happy that we have the competitive edge. Um,
No,
I'm curious.
I'm cheers with my other coffee drinker, right? Yeah.
Okay. Oh, all right, Frank. I got you. Hey,
Mhm.
Peter, and
Gotta get-
Paul. We gotta watch Frank.
I noticed it. I noticed all the attention moving toward Frank since Frank.
We gotta watch Frank.
You realize I took my glasses off so I can balance the two to three?
We gotta watch Frank.
No, I like Frank. I like
Frank is
Frank.
a strategist.
I get
Frank get no with coffee, you forget?
Frank tie, you see, Frank wears tie. Oh, Nielsen have a chance now because Nielsen wears tie too.
Tie.
But Frank loosened up today, man. Frank come with a competitive spirit. He loosened up today, man.
We must have the competitive edge.
Yeah.
Interior practice, right? I
And
like
practice.
that.
And practice. Those
All right.
those saying the words blurry. It's all right.
So we know you weak spot there, Peter. We know you weak spot now, right? He blurry right now. So we know to deal with him. All right, I'm gonna come now to Paul. Paul, I love to hear your closing remarks, and also, can you talk to us a bit again about financial tools, access to capital? Because you know what we also provide here on the competitive edge is we provide capital throughout the United States of America, 50 states in the US. So if in the US you have a business, you need capital, we are definitely should be your go-to person because we will negotiate to ensure that you get capital at the lowest APR. And beyond all of that, we will work with you to ensure that you have a smart plan to leverage, and more so, you understand what is capital mitigation so you're able to reduce the cost of doing business. Paul, all to you.
Thank you. Well, wealthy people have large investment accounts and regular savings accounts. Okay. They invest more than they save because investing grows your money a lot. What's the return on a savings account? 1% or less, 0.5. What does that do for you? Nothing. Okay. A less risk, an investment account, you give your money to a money manager, you're making a 10 to 12% return. Okay. Medium aggressive. Or you can actually get 25 up to 40% returns if you're more aggressive. What is more aggressive? Flipping houses. You buy a $200,000 house for $110,000, put a little bit of work into it, and what enables you to do that? Information and education. Information and education make things less scary because you've got the info, you know what you're walking into. And I don't even think that's aggressive. That's not aggressive at all. Buying a house and flipping it, information and education enables you to do that. So that would be my closing statement on. Oh, one more thing. Not all debt has monthly payments. Okay, there's things called if you're taking debt, investors can provide equity and debt. It's a different type of investor that provides debt. Now, if you give up equity, if you take investment money and you give up equity, you're giving up a portion of your company, you're selling a portion of your company for money, and you're giving up control of your company if not structured correctly. You can take investment money if you take all investment money for your startup or existing company to capitalize it, you're giving away large chunks of ownership and equity. If you There's a smarter way to do it. If you maximize low cost debt, minimize high cost equity when you're raising capital, the goal of that is to keep ownership and control with the founders of the company. So there's a lot of ways to do it. And then talking about regular financing, it's called seasonal payments. Let's say you're in the amusement park business. Okay, you're doing concessions at fairs or whatever, landscaping. It's called seasonal payments. You can make payments. You can skip payments 6 months out of the year, and then you can make double payments for 6 months out of the year when you're cranking in the money, cutting all the grass, doing all the landscaping. So everything can be structured in a smart way. Smart and tactical ways to do things can be accomplished just by doing it, by working with professionals who've done it before and who know how to do it and who know that it exists. There's a lot of things that people don't know that exist, and you never know until you get the information or knowledge. That's what we want to provide for you here. And so as far as find what we can do as a team right here to provide capital to businesses for startups and existing businesses, call us and we're going to walk you through it. It's very simple. You are approved. Excellent credit. You already know you're approved. You could go to your bank. Why would you come to us? There's a lot of good reasons. Your bank doesn't love you. We love you. Seriously. Seriously. Uh, we're gonna be more personalized. We're going to go the distance for you. We only work on a paid for performance thing. We don't get salaries. We get on paid for performance. Your bank loan officer is not going to go that extra 100 yards for you because he gets paid a salary. Does he care? Not as much as we do. I promise you that. So any industry, oh, and difficult credit. If you have difficult credit and you feel that you've been declined by your bank last week and you think it's hopeless, it's not hopeless. Call us. Our lenders want to say yes. 680 credit score, you're cut off when below, you're prop 660, you're cut off at the bank for financing. Our lenders, some of them are fine with zero credit scores. Some of them are fine with no documentation, business financing. Um, if you got difficult credit, we can help you repair it by getting you financing for your business. Then make all the payments on time, 2 or 3 years down the road, then things won't be as painful. You have a lower cost of money, better deal structure. But right now, if you don't get that financing, how will you grow your business?
Thank you.
You've got a couple of pieces of equipment. You got big jobs you can take on. Your customer base is growing. You need more equipment to double your business income. If you don't get it, you're just going to stay where you're at. So don't be afraid. Don't think it's not possible. Just call us and we will show you how it is possible.
All right, thanks for that share, Paul.
Yeah.
And I'm loving and loving and loving this dynamic group because I can see us at the boardroom with some gloves on. All right. And I say that against the backdrop that we're going to fight for you, the entrepreneurs who need capital. We will fight to ensure that you win. But I want to be a little humorous here a little bit. I'm also seeing the gloves on when Paul says, okay, if you go equity, you're losing control of your business. And I'm seeing Nielsen is saying, but that's not necessarily so because, equity, you have advantages. And then Paul will now come back and say, but I said, if you don't know what you're doing, so that's his escape.
I do agree with Nielsen. I mean, there's a time and place for only equity. Yeah, I don't disagree with Nielsen. He looks like a big guy, man. I don't want to disagree with him. Wait a minute. I will if it's for the customer. Okay, if it's for the customer, I will.
You get it. All right, Nielsen, your closing remarks. You're mute, Nielsen.
Can't hear you.
Nielsen, you're mute. Neil, you're mute. I can't hear you.
I'm sorry.
Good.
Right. No, I was
Awesome.
saying Paul is absolutely right. You can lose your business, and we've seen it happen many times. But
If you don't know what you're doing, right?
right,
Yes,
it's
it's disclaimer
important.
there already.
It's
Yeah,
important that any deal is structured properly to achieve
properly.
whatever that
Yeah.
objective is, and that's why it's important that you know what it is that you want or what you're going after. And so I'll close by saying that be prepared, open your mind, and be prepared to be disruptive. We have to rip up that script of what we were taught before. The world has changed. We're in a different place and a different time. Information is key. It is critical. People say glibly we're in the information age, but I don't even think they're understanding what they're saying. Information is what people will be paying a whole lot of money for, because it is that information that is going to cause you to move from one state of life to another. We spoke to, for instance, the whole matter of debt and how we can utilize it. Um, Somebody buying a mortgage, for example, you bought a house, a young person starting to work, decide to take out a decent mortgage. They have good credit. You take out a decent mortgage. As that person grows older and develops their career, the mortgage as a percentage of their income becomes much smaller, while at the same time the asset in the house that they've utilized the mortgage to acquire is growing in value. So it's important that we open up our minds and gather as much information as is possible. Be prepared to be disruptive. Rip up that playbook. We're in a different era.
Mhm. You're on mute, Gary.
All right, thanks for that share, Nielsen. And as you can see, Nielsen has a wealth of knowledge. And again, I just want to emphasize that I do believe that Jamaica stock exchange market is a shining example of what stock exchange market ought to be. It's a shining example to the Caribbean. You're a trendsetter in terms of stock market, and I just want to emphasize that. And I know that the world can learn so much from Jamaica in terms of the pathway it has gone to strengthen its stock exchange market. Now, in conclusion, I want to say this. Our platform here, our role here is not just to talk of what is possible, but we have Global Capital Inc., we have Pitch Deck 101 LLC, and 10X B&M LLC out of New York. We care, as Paul would say. Others may not care, but we care. And because we care, we want to sponsor 10 persons to come and study with us on the High Net Worth Investors Guide. On the High Net Worth Investors Guide, everything that Neil is talking about, you will learn. You will learn about leadership. You will learn about master planning. You will learn about project. You will learn about access to capital. We have a dynamic ecosystem that is really going to position you and propel you into greatness. We will sponsor you. The cost of this program is about $50,000. It's going to run for about 6 months. And I mean 50,000 US dollars. It may run for 1 to 6 months, but we will cover that entire cost for you. Why? Because we care. All right. So I want to encourage you to connect with us, call the numbers on your screen, and we will definitely talk with you and give you that support so you can grow and expand. Last words, if you're in the US and you need access to capital, 50 states, we can fund you. So do reach out to us, and our team will be so excited to work with you. I want to thank my panelists, Frank, Neil, Paul, Peter, Shivani, for being here today. Today has been a very inspiring program, just having all of you on board. And we'll do this again tomorrow. And next week, remember, we're going to go deeper into capital access, different capital, how to access. I want to say have a great week ahead, my friends, and we'll talk soon. And for the audience across the world, thanks for tuning in. We could not have do this without you, and thanks for making our day a unique day because we are able to serve and give back to you. With that being said, I want to say goodbye, everyone, and do enjoy the day in front of you and the week ahead.
Right.
Where's that coffee cup, Frank? Okay, my friends.